The business deal.
I'm no stranger to married women. In the past, I've had a number of affiliations with bored housewives and newlywed girls, and ironically, it was these relationships that appealed to me more than any of the other honest ones that I've had. I'm not saying that I've got a fetish purely for other men's wives, far from it. With tastes as varied as mine, I've got no time to go into any sort of specific detail. To put it simply, the way I see it is that married women are mature enough to know what they want from a relationship and, even better, know how to make a young, inexperienced Western man feel like a king. Those of you who've been there will know what I mean. Of course, not all of these encounters end with both sides coming victorious. There are times when both the women and I have been badly hurt, but that never seems to deter me from getting involved with someone else a few weeks later. Not that I set out to find a married woman, though. In actual fact, it is they who approach me first, and I always let her make the first move to avoid being labeled the seducer or home wrecker. The way I see it, at the moment anyway, is that I'm only providing a service that their marital partners can't, and they come to me purely out of their own decision. Anyway, like I was saying before, not all of these encounters end in a victory, and strangely enough, my longest-running affair was the one that caused the most damage, which finally came to an end a few days ago. First, some history. One lazy autumn evening back in 1999, I was skimming around the shelves of the local Chinese supermarket, minding my own business while at the same time trying to impress the girl behind the counter with my knowledge of Chinese culinary delights. Though she seemed more interested in the bewildering cat-wailing Chinese costume drama playing on the cable television on the wall, I still believed that the delivery of some well-planned chat-up lines would win her over while I was paying for my goods. I started to search my head. So, how do I actually cook these? I thought might work, but I'd fall flat on my face if she told me to read the instructions written in plain English on the back of the packet. I used to know someone who was Chinese, was equally as geeky as I like to watch Chinese movies, which when said seem to freak out most Chinese girls when they know that you watch quote their unquote films. It's like the bird knowing it's being watched by the bird spotter, making them feel like an object in a museum that you've read up on. I had to think of something more ordinary to use. After all, I was trying to impress her, not give her the impression that I was a first-time Asian Addicts Anonymous coming out of the closet. Hey baby! Ever wanted to score with a white guy was definitely out of the question, and I put it back into its use only in emergencies case. Just as I was about to think of something constructive, I was distracted by the sound of the bell above the shop doorway, indicating that someone else had entered the store. I casually turned to see the new arrival, and that was the first time I laid eyes upon Kit, or Mrs. Kit Richards to her full title, an older-looking Chinese woman that seemed to ooze sophistication from every pore on her smooth yellow skin. My first impression was that she was a lawyer or the head of some company, a successful one too, since she wore an expensive-looking office suit underneath a long dark coat that she had opened to draw attention to the long slit at the side of her skirt. As if that wasn't enough bait to tease my roving eyes, she also had on a pair of knee-high black leather boots, which seemed to have sucked me in more times than a West End prostitute. Sometimes, late at night when I'm alone in the house, I reckon I'd even go as far as having a shag with a Western girl if she wore black leather boots, but you didn't hear it from me, okay folks? Don't want to tarnish my reputation now, do I? Not wanting to make my ogling look too obvious, I went back to looking at a few items on the nearby shelves, picking up the odd packet here and there in the hope of regaining my appearance as a normal customer. From the corner of my eye, I watched her walk around the store, and even that was attractive, the way she held the appearance of being someone with authority wherever she went. At one point, she walked past me, and her perfume hit me harder than a high-priced S&M expert. I'm sure you'll all agree that, after years of evolution, we guys are still simple monkey men who fall head over heels when a nice smell enters our nostrils. I was starting to go crazy, with my pulse rate feeling like it had tripled. The tacky costume drama on the television had been replaced with an equally dodgy Cantonese pop video, and the girl behind the counter now looked like a wild boar in jeans compared to this other woman. What was I to do without any wild cards to play with? I needed a plan. I must have looked more confused by the pack of mooncakes than I thought because a few seconds later, I heard a voice coming from behind me. They're called mooncakes. We usually have them in September, and for a brief second, I shut my eyes and begged that it came from the person who I hoped it was. Someone upstairs must have liked me, because when I turned around, there she was. Miss Sophistication in all her glory. The perfume hit me again. Oh really? Are they good and stuff? I replied, managing to sound more nervous than a virgin in a brothel. My mouth was drying up fast, and the palms of my hands felt like miniature oceans of sweat. Well, you should buy a pack to try them. Most people seem to enjoy them anyway, she replied rather coldly, before adding, you know, I don't usually see any gylo in here. What makes you different from the others? Was she asking me to justify why I was the only Westerner in a Chinese supermarket, or what qualities I had to offer her as a potential lover? The way she said it seemed so sincere, but in the end, I decided she was unfortunately asking for the former. I told her I was just there to pick up a few snacks and maybe rent a movie. The conversation continued, and while I won't bore you with all the details, partly because I don't remember them, it ended with her inviting me round to her house a few days later, where she promised to teach me how to cook a traditional Chinese meal. She told me her name, Kit, and her age, 27, and was upfront in admitting she was already married, though her husband was away on business. Not that it really mattered, as we were just seeing each other as friends anyway. Yeah, right. There's no such thing as being just friends when there's that much sexual tension in the air. By the end of the night on our first date, she was screaming my name in orgasm. Like I said at the start, it was her who made the first move. Sure, I wanted it as much as she did, but it was her decision to take things further. Well, that's how I met Kit, and over the next few months, we saw each other weekly whenever her husband was away. This was one relationship we could both benefit from. She had a guy who could take care of her, show her a good time, and not finish after 2 minutes. Meanwhile, I had a stunning Chinese woman who became a part-time girlfriend. This arrangement was perfect. It stopped me from becoming bored with a typical, everyday relationship, and I was free to choose when I wanted to see her or not. Give me room to breathe, and I'm happy. Lock me down into a commitment, and it won't be long before I start looking for somewhere, or, more precisely, someone else to play with. Just call me Mr. Bastard.
Even better, I wasn't in love with her, and I think she knew it. So I didn't have any hang-ups about her being married to someone else. That's not to say I didn't care about her. On the contrary, I was really close to her. I just wasn't fixated on being with her long-term, so everything seemed to be working out fine. That said, there was one time when she caused some difficulties by telling me she loved me and wanted to leave her husband. I quickly reminded her why I'm a bastard, and, thankfully, hopefully, that put an end to her dream of settling down with me. Unfortunately, that didn't stop her from trying to get pregnant by me. There were holes in condoms, legs locked around my waist before I could pull out, sneaky fingers holding some back until I left the room, climbing on top of me when I was half asleep. You name it, I've experienced it. By now, I must be on a first-name basis with all the staff at the family planning clinic. As for her husband, I had no idea what she was like when they were together. All I knew about him was that he'd left the military to work for some company that sold sportswear. He must have been in PR because he was always away making deals. According to Kit, when he was home, he spent more time in front of the television than anything else. Little did I know that he was about to make a dramatic appearance. To be continued.